St. Paul, in today's classic passage from Romans, talks to us about faith and how out of our faith comes our capacity to have a hope that will not fail, a hope that's well-founded. And all of us who are disciples of the Lord become vessels of hope for an otherwise hopeless world. Now, this theme of hope is so important, the Pope Benedict has written an entire encyclical on it. And he reflects on where people in the modern world might look for hope. And one of the areas is in the area of science. And he talks about Francis Bacon, the great 16th century philosopher and scientist who urged people to use inductive reasoning, and experimentation to come to know something of how the world works. And from the Pope's perspective, this was the entranceway to what we call modernity. Later on, the Enlightenment movement would build on that and say that it's from education and learning that we can build a better civilization and place our hopes in this approach to organizing life. But the Pope says there's something essentially wrong with placing our hopes in science. Now, we've all benefited from the incredible progress science has made, medicine has made, technology has accomplished. And it's possible that there's this incremental increase in knowledge from one generation to the next in science. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel and axle. We can learn from previous generations, come up with new inventions, new outlooks on the universe around us, and gain more knowledge. But that doesn't help us gain more wisdom. Because simultaneously with this great increase in our scientific knowledge, there comes a big problem. Humanity is caught up in a moral stagnation because of human freedom. Humanity is not progressing morally. It's not going backwards either. It's just stagnated because each generation has to freely accept or reject the wisdom that comes from God. And each culture has to do the same. Now, along with all the great accomplishments of science, there's that dark side of science. We now have weapons of mass destruction of incredible power. The great powers have thousands of nuclear warheads able to obliterate a city or a civilization in a twinkling of an eye. And then there are those other weapons of mass destructions which we don't know about that are in labs, bacteriological weapons of horrific potential, weapons that have been utilized for the basis of science fiction movies like Legend or The Stand, where humanity is wiped out with a pandemic made up of the misuse of human science and knowledge. So science can't be the ultimate source of hope or salvation of the world. And the Pope says in his encyclical, salvation and redemption comes from one thing, love. A love that will not fail, a love that is authentic and true. And of course, we find ultimate love in that infinite love we call God. And we come to know of that love in the very person of Jesus Christ. Which brings us to today's gospel reading. The classic passage of the Samaritan woman meeting Jesus alone at the well. Now, St. Augustine, when he reflects on this passage, he sees the woman as a prototype of the church. Sinful, confused, adrift. But once she encounters Christ, she begins to tell the story of Christ's messiahship to all that she meets. And then the woman becomes holy insofar as she's finally found the love that she had always been looking for. But I'd like to reflect a few moments today on the woman as the prototype for our contemporary culture, our contemporary world. She went through at least 5 husbands, looking to be fulfilled. We've already reflected on how science, as good as it is, or as bad as it can be, can't be the ultimate basis for hope, for a good life. But what are some of the other areas that the contemporary culture offers as a way of life that is truly humane? And one is the simple way of comfort. Have a nice home. Marry someone if you could get along with them well enough. If it's not too inconvenient, have a child or 2. Don't overburden yourself. Somehow have a 9-to-5 job, secure for life. Have enough money left over to go out to dinner once a week or so. Maybe go fishing or hunting on occasion. Play a round of golf. Yeah, that's a good life. Well, it's a good life. But is it really life? There's some questions that come up in every human being's mind that is a part of that life. Is that all there is? Whether it's a truck driver, a steel worker, a coal miner, a waitress in a restaurant, a doctor, a lawyer, a candlestick maker, sooner or later that question comes up. Well, yeah, so what? Can we base our life and our hopes on simply having a comfortable life? There's something missing in the human soul and heart and imagination that is restless in that situation. And then, of course, there is the ultimate type of hedonistic life. Go from one pleasure to the next. That's the good life. And we have these cultural icons like Hugh Hefner, who's had thousands of women in his life, most of them surgically altered to meet his needs. Is that the good life? Is that a meaningful life? Is that the type of life that someone could base their hopes on, find fulfillment from? Or is that the empty life? It was a life, in a sense, that the woman at the well tried to follow, but found nothing that really satisfied her, and she was not satisfying to any of the men that she was with, because they dumped her or she dumped them along the way, one after the other. Each time more and more broken, more and more lost, more and more adrift. So can the life of hedonism be a basis for hope for the individual or fulfillment of the individual? It seems not. It appears to be a death emotionally, a death physically, and a death spiritually. Not only for the individuals involved, but for any culture that promotes that way of life as ultimately fulfilling and hopeful. And then there's the notion that maybe if I'm famous, if I'm a somebody, if everybody knows me, then I'll be fulfilled, then I'll be happy. Well, I'm just going through the grocery stores. I never buy the tabloids, but I always see the headlines. You can't help but miss it. There'll be a Hollywood couple, the greatest, the most beautiful, the most greatest power couple in the world, and you see them dressed to the nines, etc. You go through. A month later, that same couple broke up, angry, divorced, allegations back and forth. Or one of them has been arrested, another one of them has been indicted. That whole way of life, of celebrity, of fame, is that something we could base an individual's life on or a culture on? It doesn't seem to work. it doesn't seem to mesh. Or there's the culture of greed. Yes, I have this amount of money, but if I only had a little more, I'd be happy. And a little more, I'd be happy. To the question, how much is enough? The answer is always a little more than I already have. Gandhi had a great saying. He said, the world, the earth will always have enough to provide for human needs, but the earth will never have enough to provide for human greed. So is there any way that the accumulation of things can be the basis of a hopeful life? It seems not. There is one way that we could find our hope, and that's in the Lord of love, who teaches us to care for one another, to embrace one another in our needs and our weaknesses, and to build a civilization of love, not only for individuals, but for whole groups of people. In all the church's institutions, schools, hospitals, a service to the poor, we're delivering a love based on faith and giving a hope to the world that is sound and will not end.